Hey, yes indeed, This is the Houseman Show. I'm your host, Matt Houseman House, here with you on the Houseman Show Network. Of course, we're live over on Facebook. Please like and subscribe to our Facebook page over on the Houseman Show over on Facebook. And of course, like and subscribe over on our YouTube page. You can rewatch any of our videos. Plus, we are trying to come up with content throughout the week. You can go check that out over on our YouTube page for any news and instant analysis. You can go over to our Facebook page and check out our Facebook page as well. So, we got a jam-packed show for you tonight. We're kind of combining Tuesday's show with today's show being Thursday. We're combining the two shows, so we got the picks. We're going to talk about the Lions, Michigan State. Obviously, the Red Wings season opener tonight. We're going to talk about them. We'll talk about the Pistons. We're going to dive into all of it right here on the Houseman Show. Jam-packed show for you tonight. Of course, you're joined, as always, by my co-host, my son Bradley. He is currently in his swing, but I'm sure he will join us on the show at some point. So stay tuned for that. So let's dive right in. We're going to talk college football. Talk NFL, talk Michigan State, all that stuff. So let's dive right into college football. Busy weekend last weekend of college football. It really kind of feels like that Michigan, Florida State, that Georgia, that those three teams are the top. Like this season has kind of been the first 5 weeks of the year were kind of a log jam, right? There were 9, 10, 11 teams that were all in contention. Now there's really 3 teams have seemingly pulled apart from the pack. I still don't think there's that one or two elite teams in college football. I don't think there's that super team this year, but I do feel like that 3 teams have pulled themselves from the pack in college football. And I think Georgia, Michigan, and Florida State have done that. Florida State, still my number 1 team in the country. They beat LSU. And obviously they beat Clemson at Clemson. That's still a feat. I know Clemson's not as good as years past, but they're still a very, very good football team. So they have 2 of the most impressive wins. Now, obviously, Texas was in the top 4, and the reason they're not is they obviously lost to Oklahoma this past weekend. We'll dive more into that in just a little bit. But Texas arguably has the best win. They won at Alabama. Oh, are you ready to join the show, bud? I'm going to go get my co-host here. Co-host. Ready? What? You're looking at me like I'm a weirdo. Let's join the show. I'm gonna get this. Okay. We're gonna join. Because people say they find you entertaining, right? What do you think? So, anyway, I'm sorry. In Georgia, they finally dominated somebody this past weekend in Kentucky. They destroyed Kentucky at Kentucky. Michigan, obviously, has dominated Nebraska and Minnesota back-to-back weeks. They've really put a clinic in the last couple of games. So, Michigan, Florida State, Georgia, they've pulled apart from the pack. Now, obviously, immediately behind that, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Washington, Oregon, Bama, Penn State, USC, and Texas are still all fighting for the 4th spot. And Texas, right now, is the only school with 1 loss. Now, obviously, USC plays Notre Dame this week, Oregon plays Washington. So possibly 2 teams could kind of fall out of these rankings this week. But arguably, there are still 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's still 11 teams that are in contention for the top spot, or for the 4 spots, and for being the best team in college football. I don't think there's a singular. Florida State's number 1, but just because they have the 2 best wins in the country. I mean, you could easily put Georgia in the number 1 spot. You could easily put Michigan in the number 1 spot if you feel so diligent to do so. I know people are really riding, and people were hating on Michigan just 2 weeks ago, and now everyone's bending over for Michigan now, which is fine. I mean, I've been there the whole year. Obviously, Michigan hasn't quote unquote dominated teams. I don't know what's the difference of winning 30 to 6 or 42 to 6. I mean, it's a 12-point difference. You're still destroying teams. Okay, I mean, they allowed an offensive touchdown. I think the first string defense allowed an offensive touchdown this year for the first or second time this year. Yes, would I like Michigan to pass the ball more? Yes. And I'm hearing on the radio Michigan fans are nervous that they can't win the national championship. They can win the Big Ten, but they're nervous that they can't win the national championship because of losing to Georgia and losing to TCU. And my response is to that, okay, let's say Michigan beats Penn State, beats Ohio State, or loses to one of them. Right, and Ohio State loses to, either Ohio State or Penn State loses to both of us. Either loses to both Michigan and Penn State, or Ohio State loses to Michigan and Penn State. Either way. Okay, but let's say we win the conference, even with one loss. Or, Ohio State beats us and they win the conference. And we end the year 11-1. Because Bama and Georgia are probably going to meet up in the SEC championship. Obviously, Washington, Oregon, and USC are going to cannibalize themselves. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, they're going to cannibalize themselves. Texas could match up with Oklahoma again. So we'll see what the final standings look like. Jordan Dean is watching. Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it, man. So obviously, for those Michigan fans that say, "Oh, I'm nervous if we play in the playoff. What if we lose? I don't know." Well, then what's the point? If Michigan, by some grace of God, makes the CFP again for the 3rd straight year, and regardless of the scenario, what's even the point of showing up? If we're going to lose, what's the point of showing up? If it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to lose, why even bother? Why even bother? TCU TCU was told to not even show up in the Fiesta Bowl last year. You have 0 chance of beating Michigan. Look what happened. They kicked our ass. So, for those Michigan fans that are nervous, I suppose I understand your points, because this offense is a run-happy offense, and if you force Michigan to pass, it causes troubling things. Michigan doesn't have Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson are not Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka. Okay, they're not George Pickens and Brock Bowers. Okay, they're not those elite wide receivers. Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith. Okay, they're not those elite wide receiver Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Okay, the comparisons can go on and on. We don't have an elite passing attack. No. And you need that in today's college football if you want to win a national championship. Or if you're Georgia and you just have out-of-worldly athletes at every position, particularly the offensive and defensive line. But I think Michigan has every opportunity to win the national championship this year. Every opportunity. And obviously we also need to pay Jim Harbaugh. Okay, there's no dominant team this year. Most balanced, multiple teams can win national championship. Examples, Georgia, Michigan. Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely right, Jordan. There's no elite team in college football this year. So Michigan, for those of you that are nervous Okay, Michigan. You look at Michigan's defense. Now granted, they haven't played any elite competition. Okay, let's not sugarcoat that. But you look at next year's schedule. Are you not entertained? Michigan doesn't play anybody. Well, we play Oregon, Washington, USC, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas. Oh no, we don't play Penn State next year. Wisconsin. I think we play Wisconsin, Michigan State. Regardless, we have a brutal schedule next year. Plus Texas in the non-conference. So you're not entertained. So everyone calm the F down about, we're going to play anyone. I disagree. Don't need an elite passing game. Case in point, Georgia over the last 2 years, they've been a very balanced team. Well, yes. And Georgia, they have they have NFL talent at every position. Okay, that's the outlier. All right, if you elitely recruit the way that Georgia does, yes, you don't need an elite passing game. You just need a crazy dominant defense and a crazy dominant offensive line, and you can win a national championship. Does Michigan have the dominant defensive line, or the offensive line, and the dominant defensive line to win a national championship, to compensate for our lack of passing attack? That remains to be seen. I think we have a damn good defense this year. Damn good. Chris Jenkins, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant in the middle, McGregor, Harrell, Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore coming off the edge. Our linebackers are elite. Our secondary, with injuries in the secondary, our defense has been getting a lot of experience in the secondary. So perhaps Michigan's defense is elite enough to win us a national championship. But I don't want to hear people bitching and moaning about, we're going to lose. Why are you saying our passing team is lacking? Just curious. Well, first off, we only pass 15 times a game. Now, I know we haven't been running nearly as much. Blake Corum's not running 30 times a game. He's running the most. He's only ran over 20 times one game this year. For Owen Wilson, I don't think he can keep up the first 6 games here, the performance that he's been making. I don't think he can keep that up. I don't think he's a number 1 elite wide receiver. Cornelius Johnson had a really nice game against Ohio State last year, but what has he done besides that? Colston Loveland is an elite tight end. That's really it. That's the only elite, true pass catcher that we have for Michigan. And again, we only pass the ball 15 times a game. It's not that Michigan's receivers, they're not. We don't have a Braylon Edwards. We don't have a Steve Breston, but we don't have a Jason Avant on our team anymore. We have Colston Loveland. He's an elite tight end, and he could possibly be the next Brock Bowers. But it's just, we don't have these elite wide receivers that I think that can. So you better hope that our defense and our offensive line dominates in the playoff game. That's what you have to hope for, right? If you're Michigan, because we saw against TCU, when you take away the run and you force Michigan to pass, those passes become very predictable. Thus, they get pick sixed, and thus JJ ends up throwing 2 or 3 pick sixes like he did against TCU. So our offense, while most teams can't stop our rushing attack, but obviously if you're TCU and you have a whole month to prepare how to stop Michigan's offense, it's very predictable. And if you have a good enough defense, you can stop it. And J.J. McCarthy, I think, is the best quarterback Michigan has had since Denard Robinson, and even if you want to say Chad Henne, that's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. And J.J. McCarthy, I think, is talented enough at quarterback to win you these games. Get comfortable with the balanced approach. Michigan team run game will be split to keep both healthy. We don't need elite if you can attack in all areas. Absolutely, yeah. I did say that Michigan's offense is more balanced this year in comparison to other years. We are not predictable over the first 6 games. But again, you're playing UNLV, you're playing Bowling Green, Minnesota, Nebraska. You're playing these teams that have they don't have the athletes to stop our predictability. But you've seen people, I mean, again, Blake Corum hasn't dominated running the ball. My wife is what? I was in the house. Thank you for watching over at work. You've seen them stop our running. Our rushing attack hasn't been nearly as dominant as years past. Now, yes, Jordan, you're right. We're more balanced on offense this year. Absolutely. But I just, anyway, I think Michigan can win a national championship. Hi. Mommy says hi. Say hi to Mommy. Wait, can you wait? I think Michigan can win a national championship. We'll find out Penn State week who we really are on offense. Yeah, Penn State on Michigan's schedule, I think, is more important than Penn State. If you beat Penn State, I think you can afford to lose to Ohio State. As we saw last year, Ohio State kind of fell into the CFP. Even though they lost to Michigan, got embarrassed, they still got in. So Michigan can afford to lose to either Ohio State or Penn State. They can't afford to lose both. So that Penn State game, Jordan, you're absolutely right. That Penn State game is extremely important, and we'll find out everything we need to find out. And I don't trust James Franklin. Penn State, I don't trust their receivers. I don't really trust Drew Allard. Again, Penn State, kind of the same thing as James Franklin taking a shot at our schedule. Who's Penn State played? Oh, West Virginia. Oh, you played West Virginia. Really? Wow. Isn't that impressive? You played West Virginia. Congratulations. You played Delaware, you played UMass, you played Iowa. You played all these garbage teams, just like Michigan. The only difference is you played West Virginia, who has a pulse, who's 4-1. Congratulations, James. Hey, you want to take shots at us? That's fine. I don't think you'll be taking shots at us when we beat you by 30 again. I'm just saying. And if Drew Aller was so good, why wasn't he playing last year? We have Sean Clear, but he's okay. Fine. But that Penn State game is extremely important for Michigan. I wanted to talk about, Michigan finally looks like one of the best teams in the country. Okay, they've apparently silenced the critics. Everyone's talking about Michigan lately. Everyone's on top of Michigan now. All of a sudden, the last 2 weeks, apparently you have to beat teams 52-10 in order to get national respect. Okay. Why 30-6 is not a dominant performance, but 52-10 is? Okay. To me, they're basically the same. But like I said, Michigan not overly dominant, but they're good at everything. Okay, they are good at passing. But I want to find out what happens when an opposing defense shuts down Roman Wilson. Okay, what happens to the passing attack? Okay, can Cornelius Johnson play like he did against Ohio State? Can Colson Loveland play like he did against Ohio State and Purdue? And can he continue? Can other guys step up? Shamaj Morgan has shown some things. Frederick Moore has shown some things. Tyler Morris has shown some things. So can other guys step up enough to win us these games? We'll see. It is interesting that, and Jordan, maybe, I'm interested to hear your opinion on this. It is interesting that Khalil Mullings has seemingly surpassed Donovan Edwards on the depth chart. Okay, I don't know where Donovan Edwards has kind of disappeared from this offense. Whether he's not playing, whether he's saving himself for the NFL, whether he's just not as interested this year. It's kind of like he's playing uninterested. I don't know what his deal is. It's kind of weird. But Khalil Mullings is getting more carries at the goal line. Which I understand. Khalil Mullings is 225 pounds. Donovan is 205, 207, whatever. but Khalil Mullings is getting more opportunities than Donovan Edwards. So it kind of feels like Mullings has surpassed Edwards on the depth chart, and that's very interesting. Maybe Edwards has an injury that we don't know about. I don't know. It's very strange that Edwards has kind of fallen back in the depth chart. But obviously, if him and Corum get going, Penn State knows better than anybody. Ohio State knows better than anybody. Once those two guys get going, it's over. So that I find very interesting. And obviously, the big storyline, Michigan is considering giving Jim Harbaugh a contract. I don't know why that announcement hasn't been officially made. Johnny Bacon made the report earlier that everyone is on board for a contract extension for Jim Harbaugh. And this is, I wouldn't say he has passed him on the depth chart. Michigan has realized Edwards is a finesse player, which he is. Mullings is more physical for short yardage, red zone, downhill football. Absolutely. And maybe that's just the case. Don't count Edwards out. He'll have some big games coming. And I hope you're right. I love Donnie. Donnie's awesome. He played tremendous against Ohio State, tremendous against Purdue. I think Ohio State is still seeing him run. He's still running on Ohio State. But it's just interesting that and maybe they realize he's a more finesse, more like a third down back almost, which kind of feels like a cop out. It kind of feels like a diss to Edwards, but it's really not. So hopefully, I hope Edwards has a big game. I hope Corum has a big game sometime soon, because Corum hasn't wowed on the stat chart. He'll have his big statistical year in the passing game. His best. Yes, and they obviously have been throwing to him a lot more this year. And listen, and my dad brought up a good point watching earlier in the year. You got to feed Donovan Edwards so he doesn't. Obviously, he can go to the NFL, but obviously, if he chooses to stay, you don't want him to transfer because I'm not getting enough care. I'm not getting my carries, right? Blake Corum and Khalil Mullings are getting my carries. So obviously, you want to feed Donovan as much as possible, whether that's in the passing game or whether that's handoffs. You want to feed Donovan just so in case he does come, just so he doesn't risk with today's transfer portal the way it is. I don't want to risk possibly losing Donovan Edwards. But Harbaugh, you got to pay Harbaugh. Okay, we got to pay him now. If you want to keep beyond this season, you want to keep up the success that we are having right now. In order to avoid this being a 3-year window, you got to pay Jim Harbaugh. I personally don't think he's worried about that, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, I hope not. It's something my dad just brought up, and I think my dad is right, especially in today's transfer portal world. You got to keep feeding him so he doesn't even think about transferring if he chooses to stay. Obviously, he very well could go to the NFL. But Tom Diamond is watching. Thank you. I appreciate it. So obviously we need to pay Harbaugh. Okay, plain and simple. I don't care if it's a 10-year, $100 million contract. I don't care what it is. Okay, you need to do it. $12.5 million base minimal, 7-year extension is what we should aim for. Yeah, 12.5, that's a lot. But the 3 years success that we have had, 12.5 is fine. And probably in the grand scheme of things is going to seem like a bargain. And as long as he doesn't do any extracurricular activities like Mel Tucker, he should be fine. That contract we shouldn't regret the contract. And as long as he doesn't run it into the ground like Mark D'Antonio did at Michigan State, then that's fine. At 12.5, I would say 10 years at 12.5. I'm okay with 12, with 10 years. But 7 would be fine too. You need to keep Harbaugh around in order to keep Michigan rolling the way that they're rolling. Okay? needs a higher buyout and clauses in his contract. He's done with the NFL. I hope he's done with the NFL. I'm tired. And Jordan, and I know you're a big Michigan fan as well. I'm tired of these of these off seasons of him flirting with the NFL. I'm tired of it. And I don't know if it's money. I don't know. I think he does. Jim Harbaugh, at the end of the day, does want an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. I really do. And who wouldn't? He was on the cusp. He lost to his brother. So I do think in the back of his mind, that's what he wants. But obviously now with the Big Ten adding a Washington and an Oregon and a USC and a UCLA, the Big Ten is going to get a lot more difficult. Now granted, you've got 12 teams to make the CFP instead of 4. So that makes things a little easier. But overall, does Jim Harbaugh want to deal with all that? And the NCAA, are they going to be on his ass next year? So they're going to, the NCAA, NCAA handed out Kansas's punishment this week. Whew, they got him. The NCAA, they got Kansas. It's really just a slap on the wrist for that whole FBI scandal. He's used all his antics to get what he's now for at Michigan. Assistant coaches money, NIL offerings. He's got all of it and more. Does he have the NIL? I know Michigan is pretty good. Michigan's pretty good with the NIL. Once you get on campus, JJ's got a pretty nice NIL deal. Once you're here, but do they need more for the NIL as far as to get the recruits here? Okay, because Michigan's not recruiting at the level of a Georgia, an Alabama, and Ohio State. They're good. They're in the top 10 or whatever for next year's class, but we don't have a plethora of 5-star kids. We have a different approach with NIL, but we have it. I know we have NIL. JJ's got a tremendous deal with NIL. Hell, I have a jersey, one of those T-shirt jerseys that donate to his NIL. Part of the proceeds from the jersey go to JJ. So that's fine. But as far as I don't want an A&M or a Miami situation where you're giving out bags and cars to get recruits here, but maybe you need to start doing it. But obviously it hasn't worked out well for Miami and A&M. But just on, does our NIL need to improve? Does Jim Harbaugh want the NIL to improve in order to get the guys that Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State are getting? That's my only question. But yes, Harbaugh, it's a foregone conclusion. You need to sign him. There's no debate. And I don't know what Michigan fan is out there thinking, I don't know if we should give Harbaugh the extension. But if you are, then you're kind of nuts. But hey. All right, let's switch over to the NFL. Listen, folks, we are in a world where the Detroit Lions, Jordan says, never will care about the star concepts on kids. You recruit your schemes and right fits for culture. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, it doesn't matter if a kid is a 5-star kid or a 3-star kid. Coastal Lemon was a 2-star tight end out of Idaho. And look, he's turned into the next Brock Bowers. So I totally get your point, but still, it'd be nice to get some elite, it would be nice to get some Georgia, the kids that Georgia's getting. Right? It would be nice to get into that. But anyway, let's dive into the NFL. The Lions, folks, are one of the 3 best teams in it. It is no longer San Francisco, Philly, line. Draw the line at everybody else. No. It's San Francisco, it's Philadelphia, it's the Lions. And then you draw the line, and then it's everyone else. That's the world that we live in. That's the crazy, bizarre world that we live in. That's what the Lions winning against Carolina meant. And that's what this game against Tampa means. And obviously injuries. But hey, St. Brown might play. I don't know about Brian Branch. You still got your defense. You still got Reynolds and Raymond and Jones and Laporta. You still got our offensive line intact, even if let's say Jonah Jackson, he hurt his ankle. Let's say he doesn't play this week. But if Glasgow can fill in for him. You still have Vaitai, you still have Sewell, you still have Ragnar, you still have Decker. Now the problem is if Decker and Jackson don't play, then that's a problem. But that's my only concern about Tampa is will the injuries catch up against us? Now obviously I think Tampa, Baltimore, and the Chargers, 3 of our next 4 games here, you're probably going to lose 2 of them, right? They're just kind of built-in losses. It is what it is. Las Vegas, I don't see any scenario in which you lose to Vegas. I know Vegas looked decent against Green Bay, but Lions should be fine. But I do think the Lions will beat Tampa and we'll go over in the picks. Listen, despite the injuries, the Lions are getting the job done. Okay, Laporta is awesome. He had 2 touchdowns. That flea flicker play is an automatic 6. That's the second time they've run it this year. Now this game they added a double reverse to it on top of a flea flicker, and it was an automatic 6. So Ben Johnson is going to show that we will run the same play, but we'll add things to it to completely confuse defenses. So it'd be totally interesting to see what happens. But I think the Lions are as good as ever. The receivers, they stepped up with St. Brown's injury. Monty looks so good, even with Jahmyr Gibbs being hurt. David Montgomery has been an absolute steal in signing for free agency. He's been sensational. And our defense is good, and we got revenge. We got revenge for last year's game. We dominated Carolina beginning game. What? Are you talking? What, do you agree about the Lions? Was David Montgomery a steal in the offseason? I know. Alright, the Detroit Pistons, they opened up the preseason. They look pretty damn good. Offensively, but obviously they played against the Suns, and they got bombed. But Cade looks like he just needs time to adjust. Okay, get back in the swing of things. I think Cade will be fine. Okay. I think Cade. Excuse me. I think Cade will be fine. Obviously, Asar Thompson looks the part. 12 points, 10 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, couple of blocks, couple of steals. He looks like everything. The 3. Excuse me. The 3-pointer to go into overtime. He looks like everything that. Okay, I'm gonna put you down for a second, but you're being too loud. You're being too loud. There you go. Sarah Thompson looks everything the part that Killian Hayes was supposed to be. So I like Asar Thompson a lot. That'll be very interesting to see how he goes. And Devin Booker, for God's sakes, he was at Ford Field for the Lions game. He was on the Suns bench wearing a Tigers hat, wearing a Tigers jersey. I understand he's from Grand Rapids, but please, I believe he's going to be a free agent at the end of this season. Please, Pistons, bring Booker home. Okay, I don't care what you have to do to pay him. Bring him home. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Bring the man home. Red Wings season opener. It's on the verge of its playoffs or bust. On the verge. Not quite playoff or bust, but the Red Wings need to make the playoffs this year. They need to do it. I know how tough the Eastern Conference is, and I'm not a big hockey aficionado. Okay, you don't come to this page for my hockey expertise, okay? But the Red Wings need to make the playoffs this year. It's pretty straightforward. Until, not to say that if the Wings don't make the playoffs, does that mean that Steve Eisenman needs to be fired? I'm not there yet. But it's kind of getting to that point where how much longer do you need to rebuild this? You traded for Alex DeBrincat. You have Dylan Larkin. You have Husso in goal. Okay, you've improved on the defense. So it's time. It's time. Stevie, it's time. Got to make the playoffs. Let's go into our picks. We'll dive into our 3 local teams last, but USC, Notre Dame, gonna go with Notre Dame. All right, I know that they've had a brutal schedule. You know, they lost to Louisville last week, but USC is not built and designed to win in the rain, in the cold. It's gonna be tough. I mean, hell, in their practice, I saw a video today where coaches are spraying them with water in practice with the hose in order to try and prepare for the rain. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I think Notre Dame wins. OSU, Purdue, Ryan Day. I just saw a stat yesterday that that every Ohio State coach has lost at Purdue. Jim Tressel, John Cooper, Urban Meyer. Ryan Day has been the only coach at Ohio State that has not lost to Purdue. I don't think that's today. Purdue does not have a good team. I do think Ohio State will win. And I'm in Tennessee. I got Tennessee. UNC Miami. I have UNC winning. UCLA, Oregon State. I got Oregon State. Washington and Oregon. This is the game of the week. I got the Ducks winning. I know it's on the road, but I think the Ducks are just a better, more balanced team. In the NFL, I got Philadelphia beating the Jets, Houston beating New Orleans, and Dallas beating the Chargers. As far as our local teams, I got Michigan beating Indiana 49-10. It should be no contest. Michigan State, Rutgers. I got Michigan State winning in a nail-biter 28-27. And the Lions, I think, will beat Tampa 24-21. It's going to be a close game. Tampa's a good team. But that game, I understand it's on the road, but there's going to be a lot of Lions fans there. I'm confident that the Lions, it'll be close. It'll be lower scoring. I don't think the Lions are going to put up 40 or 30. But I do think the Lions will win this football game. So this has been the Hausman Show. I'm your host, Matt Hausman House. We'll see you all next week. Take care of yourselves and each other.